Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tippie podcast. I'm here with the legendary flying Brian Lopes, number 55, a legend in the mountain bike world. He's actually in the Hall of Fame in the BMX world and the mountain bike world. Correct me if I'm wrong, 4-time mountain bike world champion, 6-time mountain bike overall World Cup champion, 9 times mountain bike national champion with 26 UCI World Cup wins. That's a lot of winning.
It was a good streak.
Yeah, I would say. How are you, by the way? Good to see you.
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on the podcast and making the jaunt over here so late at night to do this.
Right on. So we're in Brian's hotel at the Hyatt here. We're at Sea Otter right now.
Yeah.
And this is another race that you've raced at a lot of times. How many times have you won the Sea Otter dual slalom?
I don't. To be honest, I'm not sure. Not that many. Once or twice, I think slalom.
Yeah.
I won the downhill before. Won the 4-cross here when they had that. But yeah, the slalom's hard here. You know, there's been. I don't think anybody's really dominated it. You know, like for a extended period of time. You know, I'm sure Graves has won it. You know, a few times.
Mick Hanna's won it 3 times.
3 times. Okay,
Yeah.
Mick. Yep, he killed it. You know, handful of guys, but I'd be interested to hear if somebody's won it more than 3 times.
Yeah, I think he's got the record. I was just talking about that yesterday with somebody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah, but this is like probably one of the marquee dual slaloms in the world.
Yeah, I mean,
If not the one.
especially nowadays, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think so. You know, unfortunately, I don't think that it's quite like to the level of, you know, stars in the sport that I think it was back in the day. Just, you know, you don't have like all the top World Cup guys, you know, here this weekend, for instance.
Right. Sometimes you do. Sometimes the way that race schedules,
Yep.
you know, line up, you've had like all the rock stars here, and then sometimes you only have so many, right?
Yeah,
So not so many, as many now as it seems like in past years.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
It'll still be good though.
Yeah. My first Sea Otter, I came down with Richie Slade and Wade Simmons as the Fro Riders in 1998, and it was Tomac versus Palmer in the final.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think Palmer took Tomac in the final. Yeah. It was a long time ago. Many years ago. I was like a fresh guy in the scene going, wow, this is awesome. I remember watching you race, and Cullinan was racing still then, and he went to qualify, and his visor fell down in his qualifying run over his eyes, and he raced looking through the vents in his visor, and he qualified looking through, like with his visor down over his eyes.
Coley's a piece of work.
Yeah.
We should get Coley on here. You guys would, oh man, you guys could have a battle of who could talk more, I think.
I bet. Yeah, totally. I'd like to see that challenge. Bring it on. So let's go back to the beginning before we go through your career and talk about Brian Lopes. What was your first bicycle?
My first bicycle was a Schwinn Pixie.
What is a Pixie?
Yeah, you know, like with a banana seat and kind of like these riser bars.
Have you got a picture of it somewhere?
Yeah, I do.
Oh my God.
I have a picture of it somewhere. Yeah. My dad has like a bunch of old 8mm tape from like way back in the day, you know, and so we got some of that transferred over onto like a DVD or something, and so it's cool to see some of that old stuff. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't remember it unless I saw it, you know, after the fact. But yeah, that was my first bike. My first like real racing bike, I think it was a brand called R&R. I don't know what that stood for, but I think that was my first racing bike.
Yeah. BMX.
BMX, yeah.
Yeah. And so you were living where back then?
I was living in Lakewood, California when I was 4, up until I was about 4.5-ish, I think. No, maybe I don't know. I can't remember that far back.
Yeah.
I'm fucking 50 years old now, dude.
I can't remember. I had breakfast this morning.
I think I was like 5 or 6 when we moved from there.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in Mission Viejo from the time I was around 5.
Yeah.
So somewhere around there.
So how did you start racing? Like was it your impetus, or did they put you into it and you're like?
Yeah, my dad basically. My dad had a friend who had a kid that was a few years older than I was at the time, and he was into racing or took his kid to the BMX track, and he's like, you should come to the track with us, bring your kid, you know, blah, blah, blah. So my dad did, and that was kind of the first time I ever went to a BMX track, and yeah, I guess that was the start of it.
Did you dominate right away?
No. I remember my first trophy was like a third place trophy. It was like, you know, this big. But
what's the biggest trophy you ever got? Because
Oh,
they were
man.
excessive back then. They're
Yeah.
like 5 feet tall or something.
Oh, dude, I won the ABA Grand Nationals one year. I don't remember how old I was, 14 or something, you know, and the trophies were like 7 feet tall. Like, my dad had to take the trophy apart to put it in the suitcase to bring it home. So that was cool. I mean, if you had a trophy that was taller than you, that was like, you made it.
Right, right. Yeah, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did good this weekend.
Yeah. Because, like, most nationals, you just got these trophies that were like, you know, 3 or 4 feet tall if you won. But at the Grands, it was like, dude, I want to win so I can get the 7-footer.
Right. Oh, my God. Yeah, and you're like, what, like 4.5 feet or something, right?
Yeah, I was never that big. I still am not that big, so, yeah, it didn't take too much.
Yeah, yeah. So I've got written here, like, in 1989, you won the BMX ABA and the NBL Grands in the same year.
Yeah, I think... I don't remember exactly what year. You probably have better facts than this memory has, but yeah, I did. I won the ABA and NBL Grands in 1 year.
So the people that don't know, like there were 2 different organizing bodies.
Yeah.
So it's like in boxing, like, you know, it was
Right.
2
different. NBL was usually more of like an East Coast kind of organization. ABA was more West Coast organization. So, you know, and the tracks were different. Like, I think at the time, like the starting gates were a little bit different, like the cadence or the lights or something like that. Usually, like East Coast races, you'd go there and sometimes they'd have like asphalt berms, you know, because they were in places that rained more and had more weather. And so it was different. And there was different riders too. So, I mean, once you got into the pro class, usually they all raced both, or, you know, there wasn't...
would meet up.
Yeah.
A bunch of them, yeah.
But as an amateur, there was definitely guys that, you know, when you go back east and do an NBL race, they weren't like guys that you really ever saw at an ABA race in the West.
Yeah. And so there was guys like Pete Lonkarovich and like guys like PK, Harry Leary.
Yeah.
Guys like that that were like legends back then. And like some of these people I always read about in BMX magazines and stuff. And you were right there in the midst of it. You know, you might have been a little bit younger than Harry Leary and those guys, but you were right in the midst of it. But then all of a sudden, you were racing guys that you respected, and like the guys that were in the magazines and stuff. And then you were rising into the ranks. Then all of a sudden, you were like the guy. What was it like first being that rookie pro, and then coming in? And then what was it like to beat some of your heroes, and who were they?
Yeah, I mean, guys like, you know, I don't think I ever raced. You know, I definitely didn't ever race PK, but. Pete, for sure. Lonkarovich was definitely somebody. I mean, dude, like Pete was the man back in the day. You know, when I was an amateur, he was just like this yoked out, you know, like superstar. I mean, he had so much power. It was crazy. And, you know, Pete lived somewhat close to me where I grew up in Mission Viejo. He lived in like Lake Forest. So I would ride with him a little bit, you know, even when I was an amateur. And like he took me to like my first motocross race back in the day, which didn't end so well. Yeah, and then once I kind of, you know, got a little older, started, you know, like maturing a little bit more, getting stronger, and then I turned pro, and then eventually, yeah, I was racing guys like Pete, and guys that I was definitely always one of the smallest guys in the pro class in BMX, but you know, it's all power to weight ratio is what I like to, you know. There's
some guys like Sean Texas was like a tank, you know, and like
Dude.
Like some monsters out there.
Yeah, I mean, these guys were all like, I mean, Pete included was probably right around 200 pounds, you know, of just muscle. You know, guys like Sean Texas were probably 215, you know.
Right.
And
jacked.
Just jacked, you know. And I think the most I ever weighed in my BMX career was like 165, 168, you know. Somewhere like that. When I graduated high school, I was 150, and right now I'm probably 155.
Yeah. What about Eric Carter? Was he in the same age level as you? And
yeah,
because he was a very successful BMX racer as well before he became a mountain biker.
Eric Carter and Mike King and Dave Cullinan.
Yeah,
they're all a little bit older than me, but once you turn pro, all that goes out the window. So I didn't really race those guys growing up as an amateur because they were, like I said, older, but definitely in the pro class. Yeah.
Yeah. And who were your sponsors of BMX? I mean, like that you did in your BMX career?
Like my first big one was SE Racing.
Yeah.
So Scott Brythop, the founder of SE, and maybe the founder of BMX in general. He was my first sponsor. Elf, I was sponsored by Elf, which was a pretty cool team back in the day. Then Mongoose was
that carried into when you went into mountain biking.
Yeah.
The first time I ever saw you was in a rap Real Action Pictures video. It was a multi-sport video. And
I thought you were going to say I was in like Tone Loc video or something.
No. But you were riding a Mongoose. And you were with, I got my block right now, Stickman's wife.
Lee Donovan.
Lee Donovan.
Yeah.
Good old Lee Donovan. I love her.
Yeah.
Sorry. Mind block. I'm old. And you guys were in a scene shredding mountain bikes. And I was like, isn't that the BMXer that I read about in BMX Plus and stuff, BMX Action and stuff? And sure enough, it was you, right? But it was Mongoose that you'd taken from, stayed, from your BMX career.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, basically, Mongoose had a mountain bike team back in those days. And there was, guys like Dave Cullinan and Toby Henderson who had already kind of made that transition over into mountain biking and were doing well. And Mongoose had a mountain bike team. They were like, you want to go give mountain biking a try? Like, yeah, sure. Knowing nothing, right? Like nothing about suspension or gears or like running different tires. BMX, we just rode comp 3s all the time.
Right, yeah. I remember them. Right? I remember them. The little pattern in the middle. It
was like you running a 43-16 or a 44-16, right? Like
pretty standard.
Although when I first started racing mountain bikes, for those first like 3 years of racing mountain bikes, 93, 94, 95, I still did a little bit of BMX. And I kind of every year phased the BMX out a little bit more and more. But during that time when I was sponsored by Mongoose, I was like, brought the clips to the BMX. I was like, oh, these are good.
Oh, yeah.
Then I had Mongoose make me a BMX bike with some gears on it because I was like,
were you one of the first to do that?
Well, there was like a Browning 2-speed system like way before I ever tried gears, but that was a different system, right? It wasn't like a traditional mountain bike with a rear derailleur.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did that, and that actually was a good little ending to my BMX career because, BMXers are hard-headed. They don't want to try new things, like I said, Comp 3s were around forever. Nobody wanted to try anything different. Everybody always ran that 43 or 44 or maybe 45-16, but, it was like nothing. There was no, like, groundbreaking technology or anything happening really in BMX. So to bring the clips in and then to bring, like, the gears in definitely was a big advantage for me. I definitely won some races because of those things.
Yeah. You was still like more of a fat tire then. Like they went like really thin tires in BMX racing after that.
Well,
thinner tires, didn't they not?
Yeah. I mean, well, the tracks are all like concrete now, right? Like,
right.
I mean, they don't even barely have a knob on their tire anymore. Yeah. So yeah, they're probably just getting. There's still a 20-inch tire, like 2.1.
Yeah, 2.1. Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. Answer me this: did you read every issue and look forward to Radical Rick like everyone else? Were you a Radical Rick friend?
No, I mean I know about Radical Rick, but no, I was never really that big into like the cartoon stuff and
yeah
comics or any of that kind of.
So when you were in high school, all of a sudden you were like being successful and like with the girls all over you because you were like like in the magazines and stuff.
No, I was always kind of a shy guy, and I wasn't like out chasing girls. Like I always seemed to have a girlfriend, it seemed like, but the only reason I had a girlfriend was because like I knew from somebody else that, oh yeah, that girl likes you. So that,
yeah.
Like,
But in your high school, did people know that you were like, a big deal in the BMX world?
I mean, I think people knew that like a race, but I mean, I wouldn't say it was a big deal by any means. I mean, I wasn't racing pro really in high school.
Yo, you're still racing amateur,
Yeah. It was kind of like right after high school when I turned pro in BMX. So,
okay.
But yeah.
Okay. So your first mountain bike race was in '92, and then you raced your first pro race in '93. Like you went to pro mountain biking right away.
Yeah.
And like, what was happening back then? Like the Mammoth Kamikaze, was that happening yet? And like, what were your first pro races on mountain bike?
First pro races? Well, my very first pro race was Big Bear. Okay. Big Bear National in '93 was the first national of the year.
Yeah.
And I remember I got 5th place in the downhill there. And I always remember that because it was the last place on the podium, right, for us in mountain biking.
Yeah.
And I remember I beat Tomac out for that last podium spot. So I was like pretty memorable, you know.
Okay.
Tomac was definitely the man back then.
Right, yeah. Do you know that Tomac, this is a trivia question I did for a Pink Bike video, used to strap a small cowbell to his handlebars when he did the Worlds to drown out the noise of the crowd to keep his focus. So he put a cowbell on.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a random question. The only one that ever got it. I forget who got it, but not many people got that trivia question. Yeah, kind of a weird thing to do. But so you raced your first pro race in '93, and I guess you did a few races that year. How long did it take you to win your first pro race mountain biking?
Second race I did.
Second race?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
You're pretty good at this. You should stick with it.
My second pro downhill, I won. It was national in Indiana, and I won it. And I remember I was so pumped that I won. So back then, I was racing downhill and slalom, and I did better in downhill than I did in slalom, which coming from BMX, you would have thought the opposite.
Right.
But I had more fun in the downhill, and I was doing better in it. So I won that race. I was so pumped I won that race that I was like, I'm not even racing dual slalom, because it was like the day later or 2 days later or something. And I honestly, I don't remember what it was. Maybe I wanted to get home to a girlfriend or something. I don't know. But I was like, I'm not even racing slalom, man. I won the freaking downhill. I'm out of here.
I'm a downhiller now.
And I flew home, and I was like, shit, I won. I'm fucking upgrading to first class. Like, so I upgraded, and that turned out to be a very good move on my part, because I sat next to this guy named Billy Tracy, who was the marketing manager for Oakley at the time, and he was like, hey, you raced downhill, huh? You won? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, I'm Billy Tracy. I work for Oakley. I'm like, oh, cool. He's like, yeah, we should talk. And that was like start of my Oakley sponsorship.
Just like that. It's funny how that works out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life is funny, man. Like the things, like when you look back at all the things that
Forks
happened,
in the road.
yeah,
Yeah.
how things could have went this way or that way, and how they ended up. Yeah, I mean, we're getting up there. So when you look back in life, there's a lot of things that
things could have got totally different in different ways, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And definitely things that I took for granted being younger and not kind of. I mean, I was always appreciative of everything I got, but just not like taking things in as
Savoring
much.
the moment as
yeah,
much as you
savoring
could.
the moment. Yeah, that's a great way.
Smelling the flowers.
Yeah. Like people used to always say, oh, you've been to this place, that country. Oh, how's, whatever. How's France? You're like, I don't know. Fuck, I just went to the track and raced the course that I had to race, and then I was out of there. Like,
right.
It's like I didn't really like absorb it.
Right.
Yeah, I do wish I would have absorbed that a little bit more, but then again, who knows what would happen if I would have done that, right? Maybe I wouldn't have been as focused on racing and trying to win.
That's right.
That's all I cared about then.
I get the same thing. I've been to so many different mountains in the Alps snowboarding, but I don't know the resorts because I went to the Training Hill, Race Hill.
Yeah.
And I go to that resort, Training Hill, Race Hill. So I know 2 runs on all the hills that I've been to really good.
Same like Whistler. Like like people, when I first started going to Whistler, it was like, yeah, you go ride all these different trails. It was cool. But then like later on, I mean, I literally would only go on the mountain to, practice A-line or practice Garbanzo or, an enduro course or something. And that's it. Like, I didn't ride any of that other stuff.
Right. Well, because you needed to get those practice runs in to get that edge, right?
Yeah.
It's funny. Yeah, it's interesting. Let's move on to 95. Norba National Series champ in downhill and dual slalom. You went back to dual slalom.
Well, I never stopped racing slalom.
But you missed that one.
Yeah. Well, the first year, yeah.
Yeah. Because you're a downhiller now.
Yeah. But 95 was the first year I won, well, like you said, downhill and dual slalom national championship.
Yeah. So, that's got to be good for your sponsorship. So, you're like...
Dude, mountain biking was good for my sponsorship because I was on Mongoose, and every year, like, I redid my contract, and, like, it was, like, my monthly salary went up $1,000. It was like, oh, when I raced BMX, I made, like, $1,000 a month,
Yeah.
And then after the first year racing mountain bikes, they were like, oh, you want to do some more? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, pay me $2,000. And then the year after that, you're like, oh, you're doing pretty good. So, and make $3,000 a month. So it was like, I remember for the first like 2, 3, 4 years, like every year my salary went up $1,000 a month. I was like, man, this mountain biking stuff's pretty good. I like this.
Yeah. Hey, I've been rich, I've been poor. Which is better? Oh, so 96, boom, Norba National Champion in downhill. 97, you're the National Series champ in dual slalom. Bang, bang. You work in both things. And 98, you're the Norba National Series champ in downhill again. And then that was right around when I saw you in Kranked. You were in Kranked. I think you were shirtless and had a cool suit. You were doing dirt jumping, actually. And a pair of jeans and a little skull cap and hitting some flow jumps. And in a free ride movie, big free ride movie.
Yeah.
With Christian Beijing, I believe.
Yeah, Christian. Yeah, he was cool. Yeah, I remember Christian from back in those days. Yeah, it's funny. Like my video parts or whatever from back in those days were, I didn't do too much of that stuff. Like I remember, Derek, for instance. Like I felt like Derek
Westerlund from New World of Sword.
Yeah, Derek.
Freeride Entertainment.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if we ever really talked about it, but I think he didn't like me maybe for a little bit because I would turn him down when he would ask me to go shoot with him, because I was just so focused on racing and, that's all I wanted to do was just train and race and, rest and all that. I didn't want to go do photo shoots and video parts or, I got invited to do Rampage a few times. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to get hurt. I got racing to do,
Right.
So, but yeah, I remember.
How did Christian talk you into it? Because he's got so much wild, positive energy, right?
Yeah. He's a wild little French Canadian.
He's contagious.
But
that crazy energy. It's gonna be rad. Are you stoked? It's just so maniacal but fun and positive. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even remember what my video part was in that movie or what I did, but you're gonna have to interview him. He doesn't remember.
Well, I remember. You were doing some dirt jumps, and then it was a cool tune, and then you were in another Crank movie, the next one, and you were beating. You beat Sean Palmer in Mont Saint Anne. I think it was it Worlds?
Yeah.
And you beat Palmer. It was you and him, and you smoked him out of the gate.
Yeah.
And then you basically just coasted the back, and he realized it was done, and he just kind of coasted too because it was done halfway down the track.
Yeah, that was 98. That was before. I won some world championships before they were official world championships, in 98.
Before it was.
Those 4 world championships that you mentioned at the beginning, those are the official ones.
Yeah.
There was some that were
unofficial,
right.
Like
the Worlds in Mount Saint Anne.
Okay. Could have those on your resume. Yeah.
Yeah, I could, but
you don't have on your resume all the Crankworks Air Downhills you won. Didn't you win 6 in a row or 5 in a row or 6 in a row?
5 in a row, yeah.
5 in a row.
Yeah.
And who was the first one to get you? Was it Needles?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Needles beat me.
Because I was standing there when your time came in, or you came in and your time was up, and he had already done his run, and he's waiting, and he came in and he'd beat you, and I saw him go, yes! He was so stoked. I'd seen it in his face, and he was like waiting for the time, and he came up, blah, blah, blah. And I just saw him like, yes! And he won it, and then I had to go interview him, right? But I seen it cross his eyes that he finally, because you won it every year for 5 years in a row. Yeah. That's not on your resume either. That's not on your website anyways.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not great at resumes. I don't know what to put on them or what not to put on them. But Needles beat me. I got second that year, and then I think the year after that I got second too. Maybe Stevie Smith.
It was Stevie Smith because he won all 3 downhills. He won the air downhill, he won the Garbanzo, and then he won the Canadian Open. And he hit a tree in the Canadian Open and stopped dead, and then got going again and still won it. Dang. It was crazy. And you know what? I was actually on course filming at Heckler's Rock, and they ripped my shirt from my body. No shirts on the rock. No shirts on the rock. And so I'm sitting with my cameraman, and I'm interviewing all these crazy dudes, and we're going through the chants, and then I'm like realizing normally I leave like, like top 15, top 12, There was like 5 riders left, and I'm like, look at my camera, like, we gotta go! And then we jumped on our bikes, and we're ripping on the road, which you're not allowed to do. And I came around right, and I'm sweeping, and I'm starting to drift a little bit. And there's an F-250 coming up the road. And I'm like, oh, my God. And I'm trying to keep the traction. And I went inside. My elbow went on the mirror. I got to the bottom. I threw my bike into Pink Bike, and I jumped in there. And then Stevie came across the line. He won, and I interviewed him just in time, shirtless. And then the comments were like, what's that homeless guy doing in there with Stevie? Okay, so go back in time. Back to 98. Or back to 98. You were the UCI World Cup champion in dual, and 99 you kept on winning the Norba National Series champion dual slalom, and in 2000 the Norba National Series champion dual slalom. You were winning the whole thing on top of your game. Who you won a lot. What races do you remember that you didn't win that stuck out in your brain? Which ones you're like, oh, I wanted that one really bad? Because there's so many wins where you can't even remember them all. But do you ever remember any what are some of those races from those high times in your life where you didn't win? And why did it happen?
I don't know, man. You would think I did a lot of drugs in my life because I don't remember a lot of races. I've never done any drugs in my life, by the way. But I don't know. I don't remember any of those races. Maybe because I try to block those ones out, right? Like I try to eliminate the
selective memory.
Yeah, I don't want to remember. Yeah, I just want to remember the good things. Yeah, I mean it's hard for me to even remember some of the good things. The ones I always remember are like the ones that something crazy happened or it almost got away, but I pulled it off. Or if you win a race, if we're talking 4-cross or dual, if you just win from start to finish, it's I don't know, it's not as exciting, right? Like if you for instance, I'll give you an example. In 2007, when the Worlds were at Fort William, in my semifinal of 4-cross, I pulled my foot out of my pedal, right out of the start, right? So I was in dead last, and so I had to pass 2 people, just to make it to the final, and I passed Thomas Slavic and
Pro Cop?
No, and this other kid Alvarez, Spanish guy.
Okay.
To make it into the final, and then I ended up winning the final. I was world champion. And then that was kind of the last year I really did the full season of World Cup 4-cross. That was kind of when I semi-retired from that.
Yeah.
And then but the funny thing about that race was I almost didn't even make it into the final. Then I won the final. Right. And the 2 dudes that I passed in the semifinal went on the next year. That Alvarez kid won the world championships, and the year after that, Thomas Slavic won the world championships. So little things like that I remember, but I don't. Yeah, let's not talk about the losses. Let's talk about that.
You just like to remember. Yeah, forget about that. Who sniped you sometimes that you remember? Who got you? Like, did Palmer get you sometimes where you were just like, "Pah!" You know what I mean? Like, or Cedric, did you know? Like, was there ever any moments where you're just like, "Ah, just that"? Because there must have been some rivalries there where you guys are alpha males.
Like you're Wade Booth's. Like the first year that duel was like officially a world title where they were giving the jersey away and stuff. We were in, I think it was in Sierra Nevada, Spain, and I'd been winning a lot. Although Wade was obviously super fast as well, and he beat me there.
He was a bigger, stocky guy.
Yeah.
Like he was thick.
Yeah, he was strong.
He was like building a fire hydrant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he beat me at the first World Championship. So that was a bit of a bummer, but I won the next year, so that was good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know which ones got away. I don't know. Yeah, you should have interviewed me 10 or 15 years ago.
Oh, so moving on to like, where were we? We were like 2000, national state champion dual slalom. In 2000, you were the UCI World Cup champ in dual, and in 2001, you were the World Cup champion and World Cup champion in dual. So rocking it on the world stage. So you weren't racing in the US. You had to go overseas, which is different because you got different food, and hotels lock at a certain time of night, and there's like strange street lights. Like it's more challenging to navigate in Europe because they speak a different language, and you have to do the money concern. There's all these different things that make it harder.
We didn't have FaceTime or Apple phones
To find things, you got to read a map, and it's a different language. It's like it's totally challenging, and like especially like your diet, because there's so much meat and cheese where you go buy food and stuff. It's like, how did you cope with that? And tell us about that time of your racing career.
Yeah, at the beginning of my travels to Europe, I honestly I didn't really like it. Some people love it. At the beginning, I didn't like it at all. Like I didn't like the weather, I didn't like the food, just all that stuff. I didn't really jive too much with, and then obviously just over time you learn. And I remember even Hans one time telling me like, dude, you got to learn to just like it. It is what it is. And, and I'm like, you're right. It's like, it is what it is. Like, I'm not going to change it. So, you just, like anything, you do it enough and you just start becoming accustomed to it and finding stuff that you like and, what to eat and how to deal. I mean, the whole rain thing at the beginning, coming from California, I wasn't like a big fan of, but I had actually ended up not in downhill, but like in dual and four cross and stuff, I ended up actually kind of liking it and doing pretty good in it a lot of times. So, I remember some riders that would always say that, California guy's not going to like the rain. But when you have a mechanic, who's like, and, all these people that are like cleaning all your shit, like I didn't have to do any of that. So it was okay. Like I didn't mind getting muddy. And I actually, like I said, I kind of did good in it. So I got used to Europe, and yeah, now it's cool. I wish I was
smelling the flowers.
Yeah, I haven't been there for a while, but yeah, it's cool.
I remember some very successful ski racers were experiencing the same things as you when they went there, and then they would just get like a motorhome and cook in their own motorhome, sleep in their own motorhome. They didn't have to deal with the hotel, deal with the restaurant. They were in their own little world in the motorhome, and they would go from race to race like that just to try and keep as much familiarity with their everything as they could.
Yeah.
Which leads me to another question too. Like, you've always had these fantastic like Sportmobile Ford vans back in the day. Now you're doing Sprinter vans. You adopted the van life pretty early with a pimp setup and had the bike racks in the back and the toolkit and everything, and then a sleeping zone and everything.
Yeah.
You're still doing them now, aren't you? Have you got like a little business doing this, or what are you doing with all these wicked 4x4 conversion vans?
Yeah, I was kind of doing it a little bit, but I'm not that into it. But I was doing like, I'd always be in Europe hanging out with Petey or Warner, those guys, and they always had Sprinter vans because, they've had them over in Europe forever. So when I heard that Dodge was importing Sprinter vans to the U.S., they were Sprinter vans, but they put Dodge logos on them. I was like, oh, I got to get one, and so all the time, once I heard that, I even started paying more attention to like how Petey would have his van built out, or Will Longden or Warner or whoever. And I got a Sprinter van and kind of already had like my floor plan of what I wanted built in it. And I approached Sportsmobile at the time because I had a Ford van before that built from them. And I was like, hey, you want to build me a Sprinter van? They're like, sure. So that was their first Sprinter build.
Okay. Oh wow.
Yeah. And
yeah.
then,
I've seen some.
Too many vans. Like I think this Sprinter van that I have now is like my 11th Sprinter van. So I've had too many. Honestly, unfortunately, they're so good. Like as far as what we need them for.
You can lock your stuff in there, go into a restaurant or whatever, and it's not like in the back of your truck where it's going to get jacked and stolen.
Yeah.
Your stuff,
and
right?
it's nice just to be able to walk in and be standing up and get dressed or take a nap or whatever you want to do in it. But man, I'm kind of over Sprinter vans. I want to get something different. Too many people have Sprinter vans now. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry has a Sprinter van. Every soccer mom has a Sprinter van. What do you want now? I don't know. I get to figure it out. But that's the hard part. They're so good. It's like
makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk to me about bikes. Like for years, you had different sponsors, and I don't know exactly what you're running for Forecross, but I know for downhill, you look like you're like a lot of people, like everybody was like on an Intense M1 for a long time, and everyone had their own individual sponsors on an Intense M1 because that was a very successful bike. That was kind of that happened for a few years. What bikes did you have after the M1 kind of like had that? The Sharpie King. Well,
I'll back up a little bit even before the M1. So when I was on Mongoose, we had our Mongoose Amp bike. So Amp was Horst Leitner.
That's right.
Who is the Horst Link. That Specialized ended up buying and stuff. So Horst Leitner lived in Laguna, and he was building Amp bikes for Mongoose. So that was kind of like the first Mongoose I had. And then the second Mongoose I had, the president of Mongoose at the time, hired a guy named Karl Nicolai. And I don't know if you're familiar with Karl Nicolai.
No.
Well, you should. He's a frame builder, a bike builder in Germany, and he makes all aluminum bikes, and he makes a lot of super cool bikes currently, still to this day. And so before, he was just like a young engineer, and I don't know how Bob Marjavickas from Mongoose found him, but he built us bikes. And I mean, he was building everything. This kid at the time was building shocks and everything from hand.
Mad scientist.
Yeah. So Lee Donovan and I, we rode Mongooses that were built by Karl Nicolai, who's, like I said, still around today. And
there's a brand named Nicolai. Is that him?
Yeah,
okay.
That brand. Yeah. So that's Karl Nicolai. And then from there, I ran
GT?
No.
LTS?
No. A VPP.
So no way.
So I had a Mongoose, like the first. It was the Outland.
The Outland, yeah.
Yeah, the Outland.
That's
VPP.
from a dude that originally came from Calgary, and he was a snowboarder who made like crazy snowboard shapes, and he invented the VPP, and he was Outland, James Clausen, and then eventually he sold it to Santa Cruz, and they made the V10 out of it down the road. But
yeah,
it was the Outland.
Yeah,
and had like the like aluminum like rocker arm on the setup, then like
and it was like underneath the bottom bracket was a pivot that swung, and
he was a mad scientist too. Super smart guy.
Yeah, so I rode that for a year, I think, and then I went to the M1.
Yeah, which you used for a few years.
Yeah, I think 2 years.
Okay, a couple years,
maybe 3. I don't know.
Yeah.
So at Mongoose, we rode a lot of other bikes.
Right. Well, everybody was using, you know, like for a while there, the M1. You know, I saw Eric Carter and Tomac and
King,
everybody.
and
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people were.
What was Tomac like? Like he was like a farmer guy. I met him my first time I met him, and I was so pleased to meet him. I pumped his hand right off, shaking his hand, and I was like, blah, 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 blah. And I think he was scared of me.
Yeah, he's a very quiet guy. Yeah.
Yeah, but he was super nice and polite. But I think he was kind of like, whoa, who's this guy? This guy's got too much energy, man. Yeah. I think I freaked him out. But well, he was so talented on cross country and downhill, and you know, you're known for your fitness as well as your bike handling skills, but so was he. Like he was a machine up and down.
Yeah.
And what was it like? You know, because his career, you know, he peaked and then kind of, you know, went his way and retired and stuff. And then you were still climbing at that point.
Yeah.
In your career, and not so, but you had an overlap, racing each other for a while there.
Yeah.
But what was he like?
I mean, yeah, he was definitely a quiet guy. You know, not a whole lot to say. But it's funny because I just a few days ago came across a picture of he and I, like, at Mount St. Anne and the downhill, like warming up, like we were talking to Pat McElvain from Oakley. I saw a picture of he and I, but yeah, he's just kind of to himself, you know, quiet.
He's like a gentleman.
He's totally nice guy, you know, just kind of did his own thing, I think, you know. I still, like, when I go to Colorado, like I was in Colorado last year for a few days, and I called him up to see if he was around, and he was, but our schedules didn't link up on a ride. But I hung out with Jimmy Kite. I don't know if you remember that name.
I remember that name, yeah.
He rode for GT, and he was super fast in the early to mid 90s, and I actually stayed at Jimmy's house for a couple days, and so there's a lot of cool guys from back in those times. But yeah, Tomac's super nice guy. Just I don't get to, you know, obviously he's busy traveling the country with Eli, and you know, success continues in that bloodline.
I saw Eli with Chris Chen editing Kranked, and when the Tomac segment came up, they cut to a quick shot at the beginning of Eli on a little 50, I don't know if it was a Honda 50 or something, or some kind of little PW 50 or something, and he's like plodding along, and I go, Chris Chen, you should dub in the sound of like a CR 500 while he's on that little 50. And he's like, you think so? I'm like, yeah, it'd be awesome, it'd be funny. So he did. We found the sound bite, and it was like, Wah! This huge, giant two-stroke 500. And that's how he is. He's like just putting away, but with the sound effect. And it's kind of a segment. And then, you know, it says Eli Tomac. And then now he's like a superstar, right? Winning a lot of races and one of the fastest supercross racers in the world. And it was just a funny little memory. Tell me about like Nicolas Vouilloz, like back then. You raced, like you're one of the most successful mountain bike racers of all time. You know, I think with 26 World Cup wins and all your worlds and all the titles you got. But there's, you know, other guys like Menard has the most downhill World Cup wins. Nicolas Vouilloz has the most world championships in downhill. So they've got their, you know, moments of greatness too. Yeah. And he was like the alien, they called him. Yeah. And, you know, with your racing mind and focus and whatnot, how did you analyze him and his deal, and what was he like racing? Tell us about Nicolas Vouilloz.
I mean, Nicolas is a super nice guy, but definitely, you know, way more even than Tomac, very to himself and to his small little close-knit team of, you know, family and mechanics and engineers or whoever he had working with him on his bike. I think Nicolas was, you know, and obviously it reigns true even today. He was always a couple steps ahead of everybody else with technology, I think, you know, and
like trying different spoke tensions and experimenting with like different flexes of frames. And
yeah, I mean, he was the first guy that I remember at least that had data acquisition on his bike, and he had an engineer with him at every race that was like always analyzing that stuff, you know, and he didn't take that box off his bike until the final. Like it was on every run, you know, qualifying, everything. So, as a rider, sometimes you don't know. You don't know if your suspension's packing up or if it's rebounding too quick or how your bike's reacting. You just know it's not feeling good, but you're not sometimes exactly sure what's going on. So, that really took the guesswork out of it for him, I think.
Yeah.
But unbelievable on a bike. Definitely, there's many times, you just scratch your head and go like, shit, how did he go that fast on that course? Like, I even know with a perfect run, I wasn't going that fast. So, yeah, and definitely could take the pressure situations, obviously, winning that many worlds. I mean, but nice guy.
He won 10 worlds, right? Like 6 as a senior and 4 as a junior. Is that how it breaks down, I think?
Yeah, I don't know. I know he won 10, but I don't know how it broke down.
I think that's how it breaks down, yeah. The nerds up there will tell us, the bike nerds.
Yeah. But he was bad. I mean, what's funny is I remember even him racing slalom, like in Utah one year on his downhill bike. He like shortened the travel on his downhill bike and raced slalom. And I remember I went up against him in like the semis or something, and that's when I was like, that's what I did. And I was like, holy shit, like he almost beat me. And I was like, dude, he's on a downhill bike and, he's never does slalom. And he's like, friggin' almost took me out. I was like,
the man can turn a bike.
Yeah. I mean, even to today, right? He's
still winning e-bike races against the best e-bike racers.
Yeah.
And how old is he now? He must be 40.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, he's probably early
48?
to mid.
47? No, 46.
I would say somewhere in the mid 40s.
Yeah. How old are you? 50.
I'm 50. Yeah.
50. Half a century.
Yeah.
The view from the 5th floor is fine. You know what I heard about Nicolas too is that he was one of the first to like time every 10% of the course. He'd get people to time other people's times, like lines, I mean, and he'd see whose lines were faster than his, and if their lines were faster than his, he'd adopt those lines and break down the course and had stopwatches on every 10%.
Yeah, he always had a lot of people on the course, so that doesn't surprise me. I just remembered a funny Nicolas story. So back in, I don't know, the mid 90s, mid to late 90s, Oakley put together this athlete trip, and they took us to Florida, and it was like Mikel Pascal, who was French downhiller.
Yep.
Nicolas, Corrado Heron, who was
from Spain.
No, Corrado
was Italian.
Italian.
He was a fireman.
Yeah, maybe after. Yeah.
Or before. I mean, before his
actually,
downhill career.
Corrado passed away, I believe.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
But he was, he won the World Cup overall in downhill one year. He was there, and then like myself, Mike King, Greg Herbold, Boston Beaver, I think. Anyways, so Oakley took us on this trip, and we did, all these activities that most of us had never done before. And one of the activities we did was barefoot water ski. So we got lessons on like how to barefoot water ski. Now, granted, we weren't like off a big long rope. We were like off of a short rope off of a boom. And, but anyways, we learned how to do that. And I remember the boat, my group of people that were on the boat, it was like Pascal and me and Nico was in there. And one or two other guys. And Nico couldn't do it. And we were all like, yes, Nico can't do it. Like we're beating him at something. It was like, the guy was so dominant and such a stud on a bike. And we were like, oh, we can't barefoot water ski. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's funny. It's like Wade Simmons playing Frisbee. He's so good on a bike, and he's good at snowboarding and skiing and everything he does. He's just this little determined, strong guy, but he can't play Frisbee.
Oh
it's like God. Hands of clay. Hits him in the head and just like Jesus. Yes. Tell me about going on an Oakley trip. I think it was like you and Cedric went on an Oakley trip with Wade, and it was your first time riding with Wade, and he was like nervous because I'm hanging out with these big time racers and stuff, and then it was the first time that you hung out, I think with Wade and some of us Canadian free riders, and I think it was like the Moreno Valley gap and Bender. No, Bender was there. And then Wade sent the Moreno Valley gap over the Marzocchi truck.
Over the Marzocchi truck. Yep. Yep. I was there.
And it was like, did you want to hit it? Like, were you?
So that wasn't an Oakley trip. That was just
a shoot.
Yeah, a shoot.
Oh, that was a free rider entertainment trip.
Yes.
For New World Disorder.
Yes.
Too, I think.
And I was sponsored by Marzocchi at the time, and Bryson was like, "You got to come out. These guys are gonna hit this big gap." And I was like, "All right." That's like an hour drive from my house.
Yeah.
And so I went there and.
Did you know Wade already?
I think so. Yeah, I think I knew him
from an Oakley trip with Cedric. I think
maybe. Yeah.
The first time.
Yeah, I know for sure we've done some trips. Like we shot that movie in Hood River, Oregon, with me, Wade, Cedric, and Pro's kid. What's Pro's kid?
Oh, Alex Pro.
Alex Pro, yeah.
Yeah.
Alex Pro was there. He was just like little Grom, yeah.
Sending it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What the hell was that movie called? It was like Cedric played Bigfoot. He like had a Bigfoot costume, and
oh my god,
it was funny. But yeah, I did some trips, some movie trips with Wade, Oakley stuff.
Yeah.
But that day was pretty cool. Yeah, I went there and watched those guys. Like, was up there looking at this, and I was like, wow, this is pretty freaking tall. Like, it was one of those things where it was like, it wasn't that far out. Like, you didn't have to jump that far out for how high it was to where the landing was, and the landing wasn't like that steep for what I thought was a long, just free fall kind of drop. Yeah. Like, I would have rather the landing been like another 15, 20 feet out so you could like
go get
to it. Yeah.
Right.
Anyways, Bender went first and he exploded upon landing.
Yeah.
And then Wade went and he greased it.
And he went really far the first time. I heard he went pretty far, and then he went back, and the second time he did it, he greased it right at the top of the tranny.
Yeah.
But Bender
only did it once.
He did it once.
I'm pretty sure he only did it once. He went back up and he decided against going again.
Yeah. Oh, I think he hurt himself a little bit or something.
Maybe.
I forget what it was.
It's big. It's funny. I drive that road quite a bit, and I always look back over there. It's all weeds and stuff now. But
yeah, because it was on the cover of a Crusty Demons and Dirt movie, and then it was on a cover of a quad movie called Huevos Rancheros, and then it was on the cover of New World Disorder 2 or 3, or
Yeah.
But it was, Wade, actually, that's the biggest thing he's ever done, and
it was big.
It was an iconic moment,
Yeah.
So yeah, it was cool.
Actually, I somewhere there's some pictures that I took. I can't remember if it was somebody was there. Who was? I don't know. One of the photographers that was there. I can't remember.
John Gibson was there.
Yeah, I know he was there. I can't remember if it was his camera or not. Anyway, somebody had 2 cameras. I was like, give me one of those things. I'll be over on this hill, shooting. But I should have just watched because you get to see it.
Right. You see it better with your own eyes, like through the lens, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's rad. So going back to racing, like I said, 2002, 2004, you were world champion, national champ, 2004, and then in 2005, you were the World Cup champ and world champion in 4-cross, like I said, and then 2005, you published. You were the co-author of Mastering Mountain Bike Skills, a book that was successful and helped teach the way of the bike to the people, which was cool, kind of a little business move for you and a way to give back, the things that you'd learned. And then in 2007, you, I think it was your last year, like you were saying, before you kind of retired from full World Cup, you were the World Cup champion and the world champ in 4-cross. So you ended on top, winning the series and the world championships. And then in 2008, you were inducted into the BMX and the Mountain Bike Hall of Fame. Bang, bang, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So, very much respect to that. And then after that, you still did some Crankworks events and stuff. And then you did some things like years later, like you won a sprint eliminator or something race or something that was like uncharacteristic for you. What was that?
Yeah, so that was
2012.
Yeah, so that was 2012. So I think in 2011 they had UCI was like, we're going to introduce this new discipline to the World Cup scene, sprint eliminator. It's going to happen, the day or 2 days before cross country races, and it's going to be basically like four cross was, but a cross country version of four cross. So the race, so it's going to be four guys lining up, heats, top two go on to the next heat, but it's going to be more cross country style, right? Like uphills, downhills, flats, and the races are going to be like, I think they were supposed to be like 1.5 to 2.5 minutes long, like the heats.
Okay.
And so I was like, oh man, I could probably do good at that. So they had 2011, they had a test, like a bunch of test events. So I went to 2 or 3 of them to check.
Did Marzocchi go to one of those?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, you're probably thinking of that. They had like kind of a Legends thing at Mount St. Anne one.
That's what it was. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so I did a few test events and kind of got my feet wet and kind of see what these races were going to be like. 2012, they were like, okay, there's, I forget how many races, 4 or 5 races that are going to be World Cups. And this is part of the World Cup series.
So how do you train for something that's 2.5 minutes long? Like different.
Well, let me tell you. So I, from the experience I gained from those test events, I kind of laid out a little track in Laguna where I live, and I was just go there and I was training specifically for that kind of distance and what I thought the terrain would be like based off of the events I went to. And I made a course that was about 2 minutes long, and I would go there. I would bring friends who were like roadies that like were really good crit riders, so they had like explosive, like long distance sprint power. I mean, I brought some BMX guys there that were, obviously like quick out of the start or, quick for short periods of time. And I would just bring different people from kind of my hood, and that could be like training partners, sparring partners for me,
right,
and have them kind of help me where they could. And I trained up. I went to the first World Cup in Belgium in Houffalize, which is a huge cross country World Cup race. And I got there and I was like, holy shit, I don't know that the training I did was great for this course. Like, I was training my course, and the test events that I did were more like, like gradual uphills and kind of like more like shorter climbs and roly-poly and not so steep kind of climbs. Dude, this race was like, you came out of the start, it was flat, it made a right-hand turn, and then it went like straight up this hill that was like, I don't know exactly, but like 80 meters long, and it went like straight up. And I was like, oh, fuck.
Blow your heart out.
Yeah, I'm like, this is going to suck. I really, like, I felt confident going into it that I had trained well, but then when I saw that, I was like, dude, I don't know. Like, this could be rough, And, I don't remember how I qualified, but I ended up winning. So that was my last World Cup win. That's that. So I did that race, and then I did like, I can't remember if it was like back to back for 3 weeks, but I did 3 races in Europe. I think I got a third at one of them, and then one of them I did horrible at. And then honestly, there was a few more, and I just didn't go to them.
Yeah,
I was kind of over it. They weren't. Well, I know why. The reason I didn't go to that I stopped going to them is because the last couple I did were like street races. There was like no mountain biking involved. It was like, all pavement, like, 10% dirt. At least the one in Houffalize was like 90% dirt.
Right, yeah.
These other ones were just like all pavement, not very technical. Like, I don't know. They just weren't mountain biking. there was like shady shit going on where like, so they didn't have like a proper starting gate. They had us lined up and people holding your seat, right? So you could balance. And then when the gun went off, like they let go of your seat. But then you could have like somebody from your team, like your mechanic or your,
not an
whatever.
Impartial person.
Yeah, holding your seat. And like, I was very vocal in those days about racing and things like this. And sometimes I got a bad rap for that, but I was just like, it's bullshit in my opinion. It's not fair. Like nobody speaks up about that kind of shit. And I was just like, this is lame. So you're telling me like a race that's a minute and a half long where a start is important, I can have my fucking mechanic hold me? Like, and he's like, I remember it was Simon Burney, who's still like a UCI top official. And I remember going to him like, dude, how is that fair? And he's like, well, we're watching. And I'm like, you're watching? So do you have like 4 sets of eyes? Because how can you watch all 4 of the people when the gun goes off?
Yeah.
And it's just
this much of a difference is enough to get an elbow on somebody.
Exactly. And it was just typical, kind of UCI bullshit politics that, there was so many things like that happened throughout, my racing career. And yeah, I didn't like to,
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. If I didn't think it was right, I said something.
Yeah. Okay, speak your mind. So that was your last World Cup. You like I said, you went on to race like Crankworks, dual slaloms and you podiumed and in the downhills and the dual slaloms, and then you won the air downhill multiple times, 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
So, you kept on racing, but you're not racing dual slalom tomorrow. You're not racing. Are you racing Crankworks Whistler again? Tell me what it's like now that you're 50 years old. You've been one of the most successful racers forever, but now you're 50. These guys are young but you've got a competitive spirit in you at the same time, and you've got skills, but at the same time, you're racing younger dudes, and you can't be in the top. You can't be the champ forever.
No.
What's it like being older, but still having a competitive spirit on the inside that wants to go fast and win races as a born competitor? Tell me about that fight within yourself.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that knows me knows that I was super competitive. God, I wonder, was it even you? Somebody at Interbike one year was like, maybe it was somebody at Vital. They did like, who's the most competitive person in cycling? And they like asked all these random people, and like, I won like the majority vote of the most competitive guy. I
think that was me. We're doing a trivia thing, and that was one of the questions.
Yeah. But as I get older, I like having friendly competition still. And I always joke with people that as you get, when you're our age, it's like, I kind of joke like, what do you got to lose, right? Like if you beat a bunch of 20-year-old kids, it's kind of like, you get to laugh at them like, dude, I'm like your dad's age. Like, can I beat you? Come on, get your shit together, And if you lose, you're like, well, shit, you should beat me. You're 20 years old, right? So you kind of got nothing to lose, but I don't by any means expect to, win every race I do. I'm very realistic about that, but I'm also kind of person that I don't want to look like an idiot or just get my ass totally like handed to me. Like if I go do a race and I get beat by 10 dudes who are all like current badass dudes, like I'm fine with that. You know? But I don't know. I'm not as excited about racing as I used to be. I just don't. I don't have the fire like I used to, and I don't know. At a certain point in life, you just there's other things that matter more than that. My time was back then, and that's all I cared about, and all I wanted to do is win races, and that time is behind me, and now I care about other things more than that.
Yeah. How do you feel about your son ever wanting to race, and like, does that play in your mind, or do you want him to like go to school and do something else? Or?
My son doesn't like bikes at all, so I don't think I have to worry about that. Like, my parents were always super supportive of me and whatever I wanted to do, and that's basically how I am with my son. He, like I said, he doesn't really care about bikes.
What does he like? What is he into?
He likes basketball. He likes flag football. He likes soccer.
Yeah, that's his passions.
Yeah, that's what he likes to do, and so
that's
you and
Paula are okay with that.
Yeah,
good for you.
On the weekends,
because you'd be a horrible hockey dad or like soccer dad. You know what I mean? Like, or like a bike dad. Like if you're pushing them and they didn't want to do it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, I wouldn't do that. I would never push them to do it. I mean, the only thing we do is we say, like, Maverick, if you're gonna go to practice today, you're gonna play today, like, if you signed up and you're gonna be part of this team, like, you owe it to your team to go to practice and to go to the games. Like,
yeah,
if you don't want to play next year, that's fine. You don't have to sign up and play.
But you're committed now.
But you committed to this, so you got to follow through with your end of the bargain. So, yeah. But he's a really good kid, and as long as he's a good kid, just support him in whatever he wants to do.
That's cool. Well, we've come to that time of the program where we're doing some random questions.
Oh, jeez.
What was your worst haircut experience? We're just doing some
My worst haircut experience? Well, man, I haven't had a haircut in a while, but I guess maybe, I don't know. It was kind of the worst, but kind of good at the time. Downeyville one year, I shaved my head with like Jason Mosler because it was so hot, and like he had his head shaved, and I was like, "What?" I'm like, "Why do you have your head shaved, dude?" He's like, "Dude, it makes you." And he was like one of the champs of Downeyville back then,
Yeah.
In an XC stud, and he's like, "Oh, you'll be so much cooler without if you shave your head." I'm like, "Really? All right, let's do mine. It's hot here. I need all the advantage I can get."
Okay. Besides yourself, who's the most competitive person in mountain biking that you've ever known? Maybe not the fastest, but the most competitive.
Man. I don't know. I mean, maybe Nico. Although it's kind of funny. Like you mentioned Greg before, and like I've known Greg for a long time and spent many years racing with Greg, and he's pretty competitive too. He definitely doesn't like to lose, and I remember there's some times when we'd both be staying at Petey's house, and like we'd friggin' race around the cross country loop at Petey's house, or it was like always kind of a battle, like even here at Sea Otter, like, "Oh, I beat you, I'm one up on you, or you're one up on me." So maybe Greg.
Okay, and he won the world championships last year.
Dude, he's like, a stud.
What the hell? So awesome. We're so weird. What's the most embarrassing thing in your fridge right now?
The most embarrassing thing in my fridge?
Do you have an indulgence? Like, are you like a Jell-O fan, or like do you have a special chocolate bar that you sometimes can't help yourself, or do you have or do you have something mildewing in the back of your fridge, or what's the most embarrassing thing in your fridge?
Fuck, there's probably something mildewing in our fridge. Like, my wife, she like puts everything in a Tupperware and puts it in the fridge, and I'm like the guy who's constantly like trying to clean stuff out and have stuff organized, and I'm like putting stuff away after. I'm like, what is this? Like, do we need this? Out, throw it away. But the most embarrassing thing, what would I say? I'm not really embarrassed about anything. I don't know. I got,
You're like nothing.
Alternative milks. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. How often do you dance?
Often I mean, I wouldn't say a lot, but we just went to a function like a couple weeks ago, and we were dancing. Me and my wife were dancing out on the floor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you had to describe how you're feeling right now as in a music park ride, what ride would you be?
What ride would I be if I was at a...
These are weird questions. I don't know. I'm just picking them randomly.
Oh, Jesus. Maybe like the teacups, because like I'm not good with spinning, and since my back kind of locked up today, I'm like not feeling the greatest right now. So I don't know.
Yeah, like a little.
Not feeling good with the back. Not feeling good when I get off teacups.
Yeah, fair. I know they make me ill too.
Shit. And my kid loves that spinny stuff.
Like, so's my daughter. I'm just like, okay. What's something new you've learned about yourself in the past few months, or as you get older?
Something new I've learned about myself. Well, I don't know if it's in the last few months, but maybe in the last couple years. You're rocking the glasses right now, but man, my eyes in the last couple years have just like, for reading, I'm just like, it's funny. Like, I never had any issues with eyes, and then I don't know, I was like maybe 47, 48, somewhere around that time, somebody was like, oh, you don't wear glasses for reading or anything? I was like, no. And they're like, really? And I'm like, no. And they're like, have you ever tried any readers? I'm like, no. And they like gave me some like 1.0s to put on.
Yeah.
And I put them on. I was like, holy shit, these are awesome. And I'm like, oh, maybe. And so like, I actually just about maybe 4 or 5 months, 6 months ago, I got my first like eye exam ever, and got like some readers that were dialed in. There were 1.5s.
Yeah.
For my eyes. So yeah, I definitely learned, like, man, when the eyes go, it like kind of goes quick.
Yeah, for sure. My dad always told me it'd happen in my late 40s. I'm like, Dad, I got perfect vision. I got 20/20 vision. And he goes, you'll see. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, Dad. Yeah. And sure enough, like 47, 48.
Yeah.
My arms aren't long enough to read my phone.
Yeah, you're like this. You're like, oh, fuck, what is it?
Can't read my phone, man.
Looking at it, I'm like blowing it up. And I mean, it's like, if the light is bad, oh, shit, it's even worse.
Yeah.
And if the light's good, like, I'm okay at it, but...
Yeah.
But I tell people, I'm like, dude, readers are awesome, dude. They're like e-bikes. Like, they just help you.
Right.
Make things easier.
Right. Yeah, I love it. Oh, my dad said, what was his line? Back when I was their age, I only had to look at a girl to get excited. Now, I don't see so good. Or, you wouldn't believe who I ran into when I went and got my new glasses. Almost everyone.
God, dude, I don't know how you do it, man. I don't know how you remember.
Oh, man. Okay, well, we've got a minute and a bit left here. We're almost done.
Uh-oh.
This is the other part of our show, is every guest has to tell a dad joke or a cheesy joke or some kind of joke. You got a joke for us?
A cheesy joke? Well, like I just said, I'm horrible at jokes. And I hear lots of funny jokes, a lot from you, but I don't retain them. But my kid actually retains jokes.
He's funny.
Quite well, yeah.
You phoned me that one time and he had like a bunch of jokes.
Yeah. Sometimes he has some good ones. I'm like, oh, dude, we gotta call Brett.
Yeah.
But what's one he said recently that I thought was pretty cute and funny? He's like, Dad, what do you call a dog that's cold?
What do you call a dog that's cold? I don't know. What?
A chili dog.
Nice.
I was like, that's pretty good. Yeah, I like it.
Oh man.
Yeah. So.
Did you hear about the guy that went into the psychiatrist and he says to the doctor, "I keep now this feeling that I'm a dog." And the doctor's like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay, let's talk about it later on the couch." And he says, "I'm not allowed on the couch." There we go. Well, great. Dude, this has been awesome. Thanks for letting us into your brain and sharing your career with us and your stories. And it's been amazing. You're a legend and one of the fastest all-time mountain bikers of all time. And inspired many mountain bikers. So thanks for all you've done for the sport and for being a buddy and for coming on the show and sharing with the viewers here a bit of your world.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun. And now get the fuck out of here so I can go to bed.
There you go. Right. he needs his beauty sleep. Oh, there we go. Cheers. Well, there we go. The one and only flying Brian Lopes, number 55. Coming at you on the BTP. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. Ow! And cut.